I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jim Mead, and I pastor New Covenant Church in Knoxville, Iowa. I'm a stroke survivor. Last December, less than a year ago, I had a major stroke in my cerebellum and 2 strokes in my brainstem from the swelling in my brain. Give you a little bit of history. December 8th started out as a normal day. I had a little bit of a cold, but I felt generally good. It seems that I was a little lethargic, but I chalked it up to the cold. I went to get a massage. I went to where my wife worked. I went to eat lunch somewhere. It was just what I normally do. That was also my dad's birthday, so I called to wish him a happy birthday. It was a normal day, and I went to bed a little early because I didn't feel great. I didn't feel terrible. I just didn't feel great. December 9th, though, didn't start as a normal day. I had problems walking. The room was spinning. I remember waking up at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't remember much, but I do remember that after many calls to the hospital and after much deliberation, it was decided I should go to the ER. At first, the doctors thought I had spinal meningitis. They did a CT scan and a spinal tap, but that diagnosis turned out to be false. And really, that's all I remember. I know now that the doctors from the VA wanted me transferred to the VA hospital in Des Moines, and they thought it was hydrocephaly. That's a condition where water accumulates in the brain from high blood pressure, causing lethargy. Again, that turned out to be false, and so they put a consult in for a neurologist. And Dr. Benjamin, who's my neurologist, walked in, and although I was asleep and I don't remember much, my wife, who was there, told me that what she said was, I hear you're not doing well, and so I want to examine you. And she looked in my eyes, and the first thing she said, her first words were, "Oh no." And my wife will tell you never want to hear a doctor say, "Oh no." And she immediately ordered an immediate CT scan and then a MRI scan following that. And she told my wife that she didn't need to see the results of the CT scan to know what was going on. I was having a stroke, and not a minor one either, but an ischemic stroke and an intracranial hemorrhage. Basically, if you were to count all the strokes, 80% would be caused by a blockage or from a clot, and 20% would be caused by a hemorrhage inside the brain. Most of these are in people 55 and older. The problem was that I was having both. My brain was swelling, and my neurologist indicated that I was within hours of dying. I was really a rare case. Not many 38-year-old men have strokes, and most of them are minor as strokes go. What the second CT showed was that the blood clot that was lodged in my basilar artery dissected, and then it went both sides of my cerebellum and caused bleeding in my brain. What Dr. Piper, who's a surgeon at Iowa Methodist, did, and he agreed to take me on, and what he did, by his own testimony and the follow-up visits with my neurologist, should have either killed me or left me a vegetable for the rest of my life. Dr. Piper had to remove the majority of both sides of my cerebellum. The swelling from the stroke caused my brainstem to be compressed, and I had 2 strokes in my brainstem, and one of them in the pons area of my brain, meaning I'd be unable to speak properly. Basically, when your brain swells to the point that you have 1 brainstem stroke, you generally don't recover. You might be unfortunate enough to live, but you don't recover. And to have 2 or possibly 3 strokes in your brainstem and have any life whatsoever is not just rare. It doesn't happen. And my wife was told that if I was unfortunate enough to live, I would never walk again, never feed myself, never speak normally, never live an active, normal life. In short, I'd be like an infant. basically my memory of the events from December 9th to December 18th are gone. I have moments of remembering, but the memory is basically gone. What I do know is that I had a major stroke on December 9th, 2008, but I was back in church again on January 4th, 2009. On January 7th, I went back to work, and my first Sunday back preaching was January 25th. God has been overwhelmingly good to me. But I learned something during my stays in 3 different hospitals. And that is, I may not ever want to have a stroke again, but I have been able to lift up Christ's name to the doctors and to the nurses and to whoever would listen. I've been able to impact many people. And in the last 9 months, I've learned a couple things. Number one, never start a sentence with "God can't." If God could not, I'd be dead. God can do anything He chooses to do. And by the way, since we're not God, we don't have the right or the authority to choose for Him. The second thing I learned is live every day, live your life as if this is the last day you have. Now that doesn't mean go out and party till you drop. That means if there's anything you really want to do for God, start the process now, because you might not ever have the chance again. Today I celebrate my 39th birthday. It's only because of God's grace that I'm here today. According to the neurologist, my recovery is not because of anything that was done medically. It is only because of the grace of God. To those who doubt God's existence, I just would ask one question. Give me, what's the scientific reason for my recovery? According to the doctors, according to everyone who's examined me, there is no scientific medical reason for me being here. If I listened to science, I'd be a vegetable. I'd be in a hospital bed drooling. But when you take away science and you add God back in, now my recovery makes sense. So if you are thinking there is no God, here's what I ask you. Why? Why am I here? Why am I walking, talking, driving, riding a bike, doing all the things they told me I'd never do? Until someone can explain that to me, and by the way, saying it's a coincidence, with science there is no such thing as a coincidence. Everything acts the way science tells it to. So being a coincidence just doesn't cut it. So there has to be a reason. There has to be something I can put my hand on. And in the absence of science, the only thing that makes sense is God. Thanks.